Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. We are joined by a very special guest, Austin Gayle, the Assistant Director of Content for Pro Football Focus. Thank you for joining us tonight, Austin. How are you doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Look, draft time is here. It's coming up fast. 16 days away, Austin. Ooh. So my first question to you is, Washington had probably one of the better free agencies of around the NFL. Do you think that they kind of put themselves in a position where they are not desperate at any particular position heading into the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had one of the most, improved off seasons according to PFF's free agency improvement index, and right behind the New England Patriots. I think a big part of that is obviously adding an upgrade at the quarterback position in Ryan Fitzpatrick. And then you go out and add Curtis Samuel, go out and add William Jackson III. I think they made a lot of, sage moves in free agency. I still think that they're not desperate in any position, but until you can really get confident about them being competitive long-term, and when you think about the incentives or what are your goals here to consistently compete for Super Bowls, to consistently compete for the crown in the NFC East, I still think they're looking for that long-term answer at quarterback. I would not be surprised if they're rumored or in the conversation to be looking to call the Atlanta Falcons at 4, Cincinnati at 5, Detroit at 7, looking to come up and grab a quarterback if one of these guys fall. And where betting markets see it right now, it's going to be Trevor Lawrence 1, Zach Wilson 2, and then obviously a lean towards Mac Jones of Alabama going to the San Francisco 49ers at 3. You won't see a trade until draft day because you don't know who the San Francisco 49ers are going to take. Right. But once you do see that trade happen or you do see that pick made, I think you're going to see a flurry of calls and Washington will be involved.
Right, and sticking with the draft, every single year we see a guy kind of slip down that you didn't see slip down, and we see a guy kind of rise up and get overdrafted. Can you kind of give us kind of maybe who you think might slip and maybe who might rise come draft day?
Yeah, I do think that the obvious slip candidate right now is Caleb Farley, Virginia Tech cornerback, who's actually on the Chris Collinsworth podcast today talking about his back injury and that recovery. I think he's had 2 back injuries or 2 back surgeries over the past 2 years. It'll be interesting to see how far teams, slide him down boards. I think injury and availability, those are question marks that teams just don't like. There are teams that take question marks at injury, at back specifically. There's some rumors that it's closer to what Tony Romo had than what other back surgeries have been, which obviously would be a huge concern with Caleb Farley. He's also a guy that hasn't played a ton of cornerback. I mean, he has only played cornerback really for 1 or 2 years at Virginia Tech, had a fantastic season in 2019, played wide receiver in high school, then opted out of 2020 due to COVID-19 concerns. I think you'll see him slide a bit farther than maybe people think. I think another player is Gregory Rousseau, who just did not show up as expected at his pro day. He's pretty much Jadeveon Clowney without any of the athleticism, just long, tall, and not the change of direction you want, not the bend you want. Obviously didn't play this past season, doesn't have a position really yet in the NFL. I'd be really concerned with Gregory Rousseau as a top 15, top 20 pick, especially when there are just better projects at the edge position to invest in. Azeez Ojulari of Georgia, Jason Oweh of Penn State, Kwity Paye of Michigan, and even former Miami, Florida edge defender Jalen Phillips, who Chris Collinsworth was saying the best defensive player in the draft. I love that. I definitely think he's really good. I think Jalen Phillips, if the concussions weren't a concern, I really do think that you'd be talking about him as the best edge defender in this class. Best defensive player, probably tipping my cap to Patrick Surtain or Micah Parsons, but still, I do like Jalen Phillips a ton. His tape this past year, up there with Azeez Ojulari, and obviously an insane athlete as well. I really like this edge class so much that I think you can see Rousseau fall a little bit as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know a lot of teams would be thrilled if Caleb Farley fell to them, if he can stay healthy, especially. That dude is such a stud. So switching gears a little bit to the offensive side of the ball, this is a pretty deep offensive tackle class, in my opinion. We know it's very top heavy, but there's some guys that are not proven at all at left tackle. You look at Jalen Mayfield, Tevin Jenkins. Do you think that those guys have the ability and the athleticism to play left tackle in the NFL? And are they a possibility for Washington at 19 if, say, a Christian Darrisaw is not there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that it's not always athleticism or ability that keeps a player who is dominant at right tackle in college football from moving to left. It's just, is he committed to flipping his technique? Can he flip his feet and flip his hands and with NFL coaching at the next level? I don't think it's necessarily anymore, at least. In the past, it used to be your left tackle handled speed on the edge and was a better pass protector. Nowadays, they both better be pretty damn good. So you're going to need both left and right tackles to be legitimate talents at the position. I think you could see Tevin Jenkins make the flip if that's what teams wanted to do. You could also come in and start it right. It's not so much that if you play left tackle, you're more valuable in today's NFL. PFF's actually done a handful of studies on that to why there's such a pay discrepancy between left and right tackles. It's kind of more traditional thought than actual on-field stuff. I think there's more opportunity too. And I'm glad you speak to the depth of this tackle class. Right now, you look at PFF's draft board, 8 offensive tackles rank inside the top 40 overall players.
Right.
Like that's how good this tackle class is. And if you look at last year's class, very top heavy as well. Mekhi Becton, Tristan Wirfs, Andrew Thomas, and then Jedrick Wills. But after that, it was a steep drop off. It was a damn cliff last year. This year, it gives you reason to think the Cincinnati Bengals could pass on a tackle and go maybe Chase or Pitts and then look at Leatherwood or Cosme or Dylan Radins in the second. It's that good of a tackle class. I think you'll also see some tackle guard converts. I know Dave Brugler of The Athletic sees Alex Leatherwood, despite the 35-inch arms, potentially kicking inside the guard at the next level, which will be interesting. I know Mel Kiper sees Sam Cosme actually at guard and sees him as the number 2 guard in this class. So it'll be interesting to see how people see this offensive line class. I think talking to several of these guys, Leatherwood and Cosme included, they say every offensive line coach says the same thing. We want the best 5 on the football field. So you got to be able to play tackle, left and right. You got to play both guard spots and hell, even snap at a time.
Right. Yeah. And you even look at the mid rounds, even a guy like Josh Ball from Marshall, super talented, just has the character concerns from early in his career. So
yeah, the character concerns is the lightest way of putting that. You look deeper into
right.
that
was gentle.
Yeah, those are rough.
Yeah.
Now, a local guy around here, John Keim from ESPN, on his podcast, he had said that Washington liked Kyle Trask. What is there to like about Kyle Trask if you are Washington?
So I do think what you like is he played some good football this past year. He played some really good football with Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts, a good offensive line. Stone Forsythe, I think, is an underrated offensive tackle in this class as well that people aren't talking about a ton. Like, he played to the level of his supporting cast. And when he didn't have Kyle Pitts, we didn't have the supporting cast late in the season, you saw some picks, you saw some errant mistakes. I think there's a lot to work with in terms of a guy that's really improved over the course of his collegiate career at Florida, has not necessarily the same level of arm talent as the top 4 guys, but has put on some, put on good tape. When you look at the quarterback group, you look at tiers, looking for guys with tools and traits that really transcend the position at the top. And then as you get to day 2 and day 3, you're looking at guys who have worked the quarterback position well. It's the same reason that Davis Mills of Stanford is getting hyped. The guy has Matt Castle-like arm talent, but he operated a very good offense in Stanford, had the quickest time to throw on non-RPOs and screens of any quarterback in college football. And he hasn't played a lot. He doesn't have a lot of dropbacks, close to Trey Lance in that regard. But when you see guys that can go in and operate an offense, you're gonna see teams jump at that. And Davis Mills, former 5-star Kyle Trask, played some good football at Florida. I was talking to Bruce Gradkowski today, former NFL quarterback and PFF analyst here, and he says so many times you find quarterback coaches, offensive coaches, offensive coordinators take to the guys that can execute a simple spot concept, take to the guys that can operate a slant flat, can get the ball out quickly, and actually can understand an offense. That's Trask. That's Davis Mills. That's obviously Mac Jones. You're going to see teams kind of jump at that, even though the trend is these guys that have these off-platform throws that can do these Mahomes-like, Aaron Rodgers-like things. That's where you're going to see guys go early.
Right. And I was kind of a big Kyle Trask guy going into the season. I know the mobility thing is kind of a concern, but I definitely think that he's a timing guy, and with the right weapons around, he can definitely get it done in the NFL. Another guy that was getting a lot of buzz going into the Senior Bowl week, and then his pro day was Kellen Mond. I know the buzz. I haven't heard a lot of buzz around him recently, but do you think he's a guy that could definitely get the buzz back up and rise in the draft, or do you see him as a kind of a project kind of later around day 3 type of guy?
I don't think he'll make it to day 3. I think he will ultimately make it to day 2. I think the thing with steals or guys that fall, it's harder to fall because all it takes is one. Well, as guys obviously taking up, guys who become reaches, that all it takes is one as well. But I do think that Kellen Mond, the right guys are hyping him up. I know Sam Monson here at PFF holds him in high regard, sees him as a day 2 player. Chris Sims of NBC obviously stuck his neck out there and said Kellen Mond up there, top 4 quarterback in this class. And I do think that there are some tools there. Would you have liked to see him play better football at Texas A&M? Yes. I mean, with Jimbo Fisher, you expected him to take a Kyle Trask, Zach Wilson-like leap. It's Mac Jones-like leap. The supporting cast there at Texas A&M, though, I mean, they haven't had a lot of first-round receivers or even day 1, day 2 receivers in quite some time, probably since, Mike Evans and Johnny Manziel are out there ripping it up. So I do think that the supporting cast wasn't good. Coaching staff was good. He played better football at Texas A&M. But I still think we'd like to see him go with a coach that believes in him and can coach him up, not necessarily give him the pressure of a first-round pick. I think he ultimately comes off the board in either round 2, round 3.
Yeah, his best wide receiver was a running back that I saw.
Weidermeyer's is very good. The tight end, he's somebody who in 2022 could come out. He should be a stud, but other than that, doesn't anybody. He's young. So looking forward, looking ahead, let's use our crystal ball a little bit. Let's say Washington does not go quarterback this year. Let's look at next year's quarterback class. I've been getting kind of bored with this quarterback class. I've looked in a little bit. So between Sam Howell, Spencer Rattler, and my personal man crush right now, Desmond Ridder, who do you think is the best of those three? And how would you kind of break any of those guys down? And why do you like them?
Yeah, I mean, Spencer Rattler, I think, is the favorite right now for good reason to be the number one overall pick. And yeah, he can make all the throws. He's the classic cliche. You look at the number one quarterback rated on tight window throws, so firing the ball in there, throwing it. There's different levels of arm talent. There's throwing it 80 yards down the football field, and it's throwing it through a wall. He has that throw it through a wall type of arm talent. You see that in those tight window throws and that grading he did have. Does he make some bad decisions? Absolutely. He's kind of like Mahomes in that way. You go back to his Texas Tech days, that guy was throwing turnover-worthy plays left and right because he's confident and he has that superhero-like arm talent. So I do think Rattler, if you're not picking in the top 3, it's going to be very difficult to get your hand on Spencer Rattler. I think after that, my favorite guys are Sam Howell and UNC. I think the Liberty quarterback, I think Malik Willis.
Yeah, Malik Willis is
that guy has an absolute hose. He can put it on. I think Carson Strong of Nevada is obviously drawing some interest. All guys I'd probably put ahead of Ridder right now, to be honest. I think Ridder, there's a lot of hype around him. PFF's out here based in Cincinnati. I've talked to a lot of beat writers and coaches that work, with the University of Cincinnati. The arm is there on vertical lead throws. I think he has similar arm talent to maybe like a Jamie Newman of Wake Forest, where he can put it down the football field, but you don't see him, really light it up. You don't really see the lightning off the ball when he's coming out like that. So I do think Desmond Ridder, want to see him run the football a little bit more in UC's offense. He's got to play better football. You got to be the best quarterback in the American Athletic Conference if you want to be considered a top 3 quarterback next year. He needs to have a Zach Wilson-like season in a lower conference for me to consider that. And then I think the other name to consider is Kedon Slovis of USC, who, man, talk about some boneheaded plays. You'll see some tape and you'll see some throws and you're like, dude, I wouldn't take this guy in any round. There are some interceptions on his tape that are disgusting. But you go back to his 2019 campaign, one of the highest grade, quarterbacks in the NFL, got a roller coaster vibe to him, which obviously probably won't make him the number 1 overall pick. Could obviously improve in 2020, but right now it's Rattler and everybody else.
Yeah.
And today, the Washington football team signed a tight end from Chile, and he's a baller. Obviously, we've seen the workout numbers. Pete Hainer, the tight ends coach for Washington, is one of the most respected tight end coaches in the NFL. Do you think that they could possibly develop him into a starting tight end someday?
Man, it's hard to say. I haven't watched any tape of that kid. I mean, obviously,
he's kind of workout
freak. Yeah. He's. I think you saw some athletic comparisons to Vernon Davis. I do think the tight end position is one of the harder positions to play in the NFL from a technique standpoint because it's one of the few positions where you're asked to do so much. Pass protect, run block, work from the inline, work from slot, work from the outside to learn the game and play at the level that other starting tight ends do. It's tough, but I will say it's a position where right now it lacks that game-changing talent at the top end. After Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Darren Waller, and soon to be Kyle Pitts, there isn't a guy that legitimately calls for defensive coordinators to game plan against them. You could throw maybe Mark Andrews in there, Evan Ingram potentially, Zach Ertz in his prime, Dallas Goedert, but you're not really necessarily highlighting tight ends for offenses after the big 3 that legitimately change the game. I think the biggest reason for that is you just don't have dynamism at the position. TJ Hawkinson's a former top 10 pick, but doesn't compare at all to those other guys as athletes. And you see that with his production. So trying to get more athletic at every single position on the football field is where the NFL is going. People, offenses want to get faster. Offenses want to get more dynamic and scheme ways to get the ball into these guys' hands. So I do think that that's the move with him. It's a crapshoot right now, whether or not he'll develop into that piece though.
Yeah, and sticking with the tight ends, it's been put out there that Washington wants to get another tight end to pair with Logan Thomas, a guy that's more athletic and kind of stretch the field vertically. So who are some guys that are outside of Kyle Pitts, obviously? Who are some guys in this tight end draft that maybe Washington should be looking for, maybe the 2nd or 4th round?
Yeah, it's not my favorite tight end class. I don't think we've seen a really good tight end class in quite some time, and that's evident with like what I just said. There's just not a lot of good tight ends in the NFL. I do think that after Kyle Pitts, the number 2 tight end on PFF's board is Pat Freiermuth. I think he complements the Penn State kid, complements what Logan Thomas brings to the table. They're both big as hell, like big dudes that can play tight end, and If you want to run 12 personnel, he's a really good blocker. He's gotten baby Rob Gronkowski comparisons for good reason. Really good blocker coming out of Penn State, lowers his shoulder, yards after the catch is more of a bully-like mentality than making people miss. But that's also how it works in the NFL. Not a guy I would necessarily take maybe until the bottom of the second round, top of the third round when considering positional value, but still that's a name to think about. And then the other names as well are probably Brevin Jordan of Miami, who I see very similar to Gerald Everett, the former South Alabama tight end. I think was playing for Los Angeles. I can't remember where he signed this offseason. But Gerald Everett.
Seattle?
Yeah, Seattle. That's right. So Gerald Everett, I think, is Brevin Jordan's in a Gerald Everett mold. If you want to use your tight ends like that, I think that's an option. And then the other guy to keep an eye out for is Tommy Tremble, Notre Dame tight end, who probably could play fullback at the next level. He's going to be an interesting guy because his blocking tape is freaking insane. And then
I watched his film today. It was beautiful.
Yeah, he's good. I think Tommy Tremble is probably going to go in like the third round, the same range as Josiah DeGora of UC, University of Cincinnati. Went Green Bay, I think, in the third round last year.
Right. Yeah. So I know we don't have you for too much longer. This one you don't have to really elaborate too much on. But who is the best free safety in this class?
Oh, it's Trayvon Morgan. Morgan of TCU, I think.
Outside of Trayvon Morgan, I should have elaborated on that one a little bit more.
Okay. Trayvon Morgan, I think right now is the only safety in this class with the first round grade. I think after that, you're probably leaning Jamar Johnson, the Indiana safety, who I still think you want to see a lot more. You go after the reason Trayvon Morgan is kind of firmly by himself is that after him, the other free safety prospects in this class are absolute roller coasters. Andre Sisco. Jamar Johnson, those are two guys that I like, but I know we're going to give up big plays. Jamar Johnson needs to get so much better as a tackler. Andre Sisco has some Jonathan Abrams to his game a little bit, and that he's willing to kind of take risks where he shouldn't. And I think, again, free safety is just a position because you rarely see free safeties really stand out in year one. I think it's rare to see an Antoine Winfield Jr. And because he had so much success, Antoine Winfield Jr. is obviously a former player's son. You need to be a legit student of the game, have legit insane football IQ to go in and play free safety and not give up a ton of big plays and not have a ton of mistakes. So I do think after Trayvon Morgan, you're developing guys at free safety more than you are coming in with plug and play starters.
All right. And to finish this up, Austin, I appreciate your time. My last question for you. Realistic pick for Washington at 19. Let's say Darisaw is there. Let's say Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is there. What are you doing at 19 for the Washington football team?
My guilty pleasure pick for the Washington football team of late has been Micah Parsons. If he does fall that far, I do think that would be absolutely insane what they did for the front seven. I think after that, I like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as an option linebacker, and then Darisaw. If I had to pick between Darisaw and Koramoah, I'd probably lean Darisaw just purely from a positional value perspective. You're getting a more market valuable player at tackle than you are at linebacker. But I do think, again, the guilty pleasure pick is linebacker because that front seven is obviously a strength. You strengthen a strength and kind of solidify this spot in the top 10 or top 5 even as a defense in the NFL. It allows you to, if Ryan Fitzpatrick can put together that high side of variance, be that high-end roller coaster that he's been, it's a team that can win 10, 11 games next year. Will they win the Super Bowl? Hard to say, but I do think that it can be a very fun, competitive team if that defense avoids injury regression and can actually be a top 5 unit next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Austin. If you can, plug your Twitter handle in and there are 2 podcasts that you host.
Yeah, I'm on the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast. That's the one I do with Mike Renner. I also do some stuff with the Daily Betting podcast, among other video work and podcast work at PFF. You can follow me on Twitter at PFF_Austin Gayle, Gayle. And then I encourage everyone to go to PFF.com, man. We're doing a lot of really good content there and talking about the draft all throughout.
Yeah, throughout the season, I rely on you guys for a week-to-week basis to be able to figure out who we're matching up against and everything. I really appreciate you taking the time out, Austin. You're a very busy man. I hope you have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you.
Have a good one, Austin. All right, everybody. We just talked to Austin Gayle. That was a great time.
Such good in-depth answers.
Love PFF,
Dude,
man.
I know. They
just
PFF
know
just
everything.
Gets it, bro.
I know. They're just right on the ball about everything. Oh, him, Nick Ackridge, they're just so smart. Such smart guys.
Fantastic. And getting Nick Ackridge to be their Washington based guy from PFF, that was perfect. We love Nick. He's a huge fan of the pod. Now, today, Washington, we already briefed on one of them, was Samus Reyes, the tight end prospect. But Washington also signed Bo Ben-Shawal, who is a center kind of guard. He was with the Texans, only 25 years old. Looking at his draft kind of overview of when he came out from 2 years ago, he's a tall pass blocker, but he lacks strength, and he needs to get better at run blocking. So if you're looking at an interior offensive line, somebody that can come in, good, but it doesn't really mesh, because they also re-signed Taylor Larson. So you don't really know what's going on with that.
I think a lot of it also is if he's a center/guard, they have to not be impressed whatsoever with Wes Martin. I mean, that's got to be, I think they're kind of bringing in competition for it. To be like, all right, dude, you do something or you're gone.
Yeah, I think this is just a camp body, somebody they can bring in. Just, they're bulking up on all the assets. Like I said, the first question to Austin, trying to make sure they're not desperate in any area, and they're doing a good job solidifying themselves with some proven professionals. Now, let's go on to our fan questions, and we'll start with
good ones.
Start with none other than the Colonel. Before we get into our mock draft 2.0, that is coming, everybody, I promise. But to start it off, the Colonel says, who the hell is Samus Reyes, and does this mean we're not going to have a tight end a top priority in the draft hall?
Trust me, I had the same reaction as you. Who the hell is this guy? And then I saw his workout, and I was like, what the hell is that guy? That guy's a freak.
What is that?
But I definitely think tight end is going to be a priority. Obviously, with him coming from the international players, was it the IPP international?
It's the Pathway program.
Pathway program. That's what it is. International Pathway program. He's never played football a day in his life, obviously organized wise, and he's a former basketball player from Tulane in college. He actually played at a pretty high level, actually. But
and Loyola too. He finished.
Yeah, and Loyola. He was a junior college transfer to Tulane. Played some D1 baller. I definitely think he's a project though. Like I said, he hasn't played football ever in his life. So with our tight end coach, I definitely think they can maybe work with him, maybe mold him. They're probably going to stash him on the practice squad and kind of develop him throughout the year. And if he makes the roster and gets on the team and contributes, I'm all for it. But I just think, like I said, it's a project, and they're still going to address tight end somewhere between third to, I'd say, fifth round.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do think that tight end is a priority, not a priority, I'll say, Colonel. And the reason I say that is because, like we talked about with Austin, they've kind of put themselves in a position where they're not desperate in any area. So what they can do is they can literally be best player available. They've put themselves in a position to where they can draft at any position without it being a huge discrepancy or an issue, and I think that's really smart by them. He's only 25 years old, 6'5", 260 pounds, a 4.65 40, 31 bench reps of 225, a 40-inch vertical, and a 10-foot broad jump. That is explosive. It obviously just a workout warrior. I saw our future guest that's going to be coming on here said, you get the LeRon Landry kind of symptom back, seeing all the workout warriors. But the one thing that coaches are looking at this with, when they see college prospects and let's say the guy's only been playing football for about 2 or 3 years, they view that as a plus rather than a negative. That means that they're raw, they can develop, they can get better. This isn't somebody that's been playing football since they were 5 or 6 and they already kind of have the wall built in their mind,
fundamentals,
and everything. So with him being incredibly raw is nothing but great things for Pete Hainer. He can mold him exactly what he wants, and I think you were spot on, Hull. I think this is the third tight end spot is what they're solidifying, and they are going to get that second tight end in the draft. And the reason why they went and got Samus Reyes is so they can develop him as that third guy who can step in on special teams, obviously workout warrior. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I think that they see him. He's clearly a developmental guy. Like you said, you can't expect anything from him this year, probably not even next year. I mean, it's going to take some time. People need to pump the brakes on that. He's going to end up starting. He's going to be the next Jimmy Graham. He's going to be on, those guys played college ball. Yes, they were basketball players, as was Antonio Gates, but they still played some college ball, so they had some experience under their belt. But he's just a freak of nature, like we said. His RAS score would have been in 1%, one of the greatest. If these were his combine numbers, they would have been the greatest for a tight end ever. Him and Vernon Davis would have been neck and neck.
Yeah, he got a 10. The 10 RAS score, which is relative athlete score, which is they put up with his bench numbers, his workout numbers based on 3-cone, shuttle, all of that, and they put it up with mathematics, and it comes out to better than Kyle Pitts. Woo! Right.
Being 6'6", having a wingspan, being a former basketball player, 260, being able to run a 4.64, and then on top of that, having a 40-inch vertical. The closest that I saw, I went back 5 years just to see whose numbers I could kind of compare him to. Noah Font had a 39.5-inch vertical. He's not 260. He's not 6'6". He doesn't have that wingspan. But then the 31 bench press reps. I went back 5 years to the combine just to see. The next closest I could see was 24. He had 31 with that wingspan. That's harder to get it up. That's incredible. The guy's just a freak of nature. If they can mold him, fantastic. But pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, and it brings back, and Antonio Gates,
Right.
that kind of guy having the basketball background
Yep.
really helps with receiving, and obviously that is a huge plus for this coaching.
Just throw it up to him in the red zone. I don't care. Keep him on the team. Throw it up to him in the. Nobody's getting a jump all over this guy. Nobody in the NFL.
Like I said to you guys earlier, it almost seems like Samus Reyes is like a Logan Thomas clone, but more raw and more athletic, and that's what I think really spoke to Washington. And I also heard something that he was actually working out in the area with somebody, a coach. So that's how Washington was able to have the leg up and being able to sign him, which is obviously perfect.
And they cut Thaddeus Moss, so I mean they must have had something in mind.
Imagine him in the red zone just running a stick route.
That's what I'm saying.
Boxing out any and everybody. It's
literally getting a rebound. But and that's what you got to do. And he's going to go out there. Nobody's going to jump all over him. Nobody. If he can catch, he's got to learn how to catch, run routes, block. It's a long road, but
right. And Colonel's second question, we're going to answer this one quickly. Have you ever considered a different schedule? It's a long time between Thursday and Tuesday for a starving fan. And I'll say this, Colonel, like we've been staying this way for about a year or so. The reason for that is because we do Tuesday, Thursday, and then we would have the recaps of the games on Sundays. And so that's how it would kind of bridge. And obviously during the offseason, that's harder to do. But unfortunately, like, hey, man, we're up for suggestions. If you want us to go different days, let us know. Send us in what options you think would be smart. And we'd love to hear those. Now let's move on to Tony Shiver's question. I love this one. With the recent hits like McLaurin and Gibson in the third round, who are some prospects you guys are keeping an eye on this year with those third round picks? Hall.
Oh man, you go first, Reed. I got to.
Okay. I mean, there's a few guys out there. Obviously, if you want to look at linebacker, let's say, okay, there's a Pete Werner, Baron Browning. Those are guys. And then I'll just throw one more out so I don't take everybody. A left tackle that could fall if you don't take one early, who's somebody who is fantastic talent, should be a first round pick if he played football in the last 2 years. And that's Walker Little from Stanford. Walker Little was a top recruit. He was fantastic at Stanford. He, of course, got injured the first game of 2019, sat out last season, but he says he's learning every position on the offensive line for versatility. He's talented enough to be a first round pick. It just, he hasn't played in 2 years. So there's not much tape on him right now. So he's somebody who, if he falls and you could get him and he could stay healthy, he's totally somebody who could start for you.
Yeah. In that third round, I'm looking at, like Chad Surratt, the linebacker from North Carolina.
I love
a former quarterback. He is fast. And when you're talking about the middle linebacker position, that Mike linebacker position, needs to be able to somebody that can call plays, kind of have that chess match with quarterbacks and countering what they're trying to do. And obviously, Chaz being a former quarterback himself, it's going to be kind of easier for him to transition because he knows what quarterbacks are wanting to do. Also, he is fast. Good tackler, and I would love to see him added to this. Obviously, we just heard Austin talk about Tommy Tremble. Watched his film again today, and I cannot tell you how much fun. When I talked about Tevin Jenkins, having that kind of being ferocious, being violent at the point of attack off the line of scrimmage, that's Tommy Tremble at tight end, dude. They used him at fullback. They used him in the backfield. They used him as a second tight end off of the left tackle or right tackle, as an edge rusher. Used him in pulling. There's many different ways you can use Tommy Tremble, and I would absolutely love to bring him in here because, like we've said, we need to get the ball rolling. We need to run the ball well this year. That needs to be a point of emphasis, and adding Tommy Tremble to that mix would certainly do that. What about you, Hall? What are two prospects you're eyeing?
Yeah, I'll just keep it quick or short. It's obviously a really, really, really deep wide receiver draft, deeper than last year. So definitely a guy to keep your eye on. I think he's going to be a second-round pick, like a mid to high second-round pick, but Nico Collins might somehow slip into the third round again.
I've seen plenty of mocks with him in third.
So it'd be such a deep draft. He might slip down to the third round. Another guy is Amon St. Ra, who just is a physical freak. That's Reed's guy.
Amon or St. Brown.
What did I say? St. Ra.
Amon St. Ra. I like that name better though. That's a tighter name anyway. Amon St. Ra.
It rolls off the tongue way better.
It does. It's way better.
And another guy to look out for is a guy like Sean Wade. Yeah, Sean Wade. That's a guy that was kind of projected as a late day one guy, early day two, but had his play kind of fell off this year.
Dude, I was seeing him mocked in I know Draft Network isn't the best and most spot on, but they have him dropping to like the fourth or fifth.
Dude,
Yeah,
there was-
no. It's
before
if
the
you would
season,
watch
he
that,
was-
if
he
you
was an
watch
early
that,
first round pick, mid
yeah,
early
he was
first
a
round
first round pick.
Yeah.
But if you watched him throughout the year, if you watch that Clemson game
Oh.
where he was going against legit like potential NFL wide receivers, he was getting worked. So I think that
Yeah.
kind of messes like draft stock up. But again, if he can kind of get his bearings back and live up to the potential, as a guy that can be a steal in the third round. So those are a couple guys to look out for.
Yeah, the one game, I think it was against Notre Dame, Ohio State had, and Sean Wade just got destroyed. I mean, he was just moved all over. Now, our next question is from Mark Baxter. He wants to know our thoughts on Terrace Marshall, the wide receiver from LSU, as a trade down target in either the early second or maybe late or early or late first. Reed.
I'm somebody who, like, I know we've talked about this. I still think that we should get another. If we could get another wide receiver, I'd be okay with it. Like a bigger guy, just because. I mean, obviously we signed Adam Humphries after I said that, so that kind of probably eliminates some of it. But I think that it would be perfect to have a bigger wide receiver. Somebody like Terrace Marshall would be perfect, in my opinion. I just think that we have more needs right now after we address it with Adam Humphries. But second round, take a flyer on. I'm okay with that. I don't know about trading up necessarily.
No, yeah, he's not saying trading up. He's saying like with the trade
Well,
back.
then, yeah. In the second round, I would take Terrace Marshall. Yeah, all the playmakers you can get.
Yeah, I really liked Terrace Marshall's film. You know, I've been I've been undercover, talking all this crap about Rashad Bateman, saying Terrace Marshall's better, and I truly believe that. And I think that he is a perfect Z for this kind of offense. Adding, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin with Adam Humphries, the smaller type of guys. Obviously Terry can get vertical, but Terrace Marshall is a straight line runner, dude. This guy can get down the field. He's big. He can catch the ball hot and high point the football. Very athletic. He would be the perfect complement to this offense,
exactly.
in my personal opinion. Now, I did a mock draft yesterday, and I had Nico Collins in the third round with the first selection in the third round.
Perfect too.
Because as a Z wide receiver, that kind of big frame that they're looking for. I've been looking back to Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess that they drafted down in Carolina when Ron Rivera was there. Kind of have that same mold. I could definitely see Terrace Marshall added here. It just sucks where they are because I know that if they trade back, it's not going to be for a wide receiver. They're not going to trade up for a wide receiver. They're kind of in that no man's land where it's not going to happen. But I would absolutely love to see Terrace Marshall in the Burgundy and Gold.
Yeah, same with me. I did the player breakdown on him back when we were doing our draft prospect breakdowns. Love Terrace Marshall. Love his tape at LSU. I definitely think that he was a potential option had we not gone out and got Adam Humphries.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, everyone was talking about N'Keal Harry possibly getting traded here. Would have been a perfect fit, like Reed said, the Z position, kind of that Ron Rivera. He loves those big body guys like Devin Funchess, Kelvin Benjamin, who got even bigger once he came to Carolina.
He's the Eddie Lacy of wide receivers.
Yeah, literally.
Calvin
Cheeseburger.
Poor Calvin.
But I definitely think that wide receiver got kind of pushed down the list of priorities once they brought in Curtis Samuel, Adam Humphries. So I do see them getting kind of a big body type of guy to maybe develop into that Z role opposite Terry, but I don't see them drafting Terrace Marshall in the second round or trading back or any type of that. But again, so when I just shouted out, Nico Collins in the third round would be a perfect Z.
And that's what I was saying. Like before the Adam Humphrey sightings, I would have said yes. So they're going to add another wide receiver, but then that kind of made it less of a need. You can get away with what you have. So
right. Our next question is from Sean, a Florida Skins fan, really good fan of the pod. He wants to know, why do so many people put stock in pro days and combine results over actual game footage, Hall?
I don't know, honestly. Like I've always been the kind of take the position of I've always been a guy that like the eyes. I like the eye test. If you pass the eye test, in my opinion, then you're good. And then if you got the workout warrior kind of combine stuff to go on top, that's kind of the cherry on top. That kind of equals like, okay, what I saw on film kind of equals to his workout stuff and how he grades out at the combine. So that's how I feel. I'm a big eyes guy over the numbers and the statistics, stuff like that. So
I'm 100% with you, and that's how I feel. I would rather go by film, and I always go back to what Scott McCloughan said. Look, say whatever you want about Scott McCloughan, but the dude got paid by the NFL. He did a pretty good job, but he always said the combine, the stats, those type of stuff, that's the cherry on top. That's not the sundae. The film is the sundae, and that's how I kind of feel about it. It should be the cherry on top. It should be something that's added to it. Now, a lot of the times, they'll use the combine results as an added plus, as to say, oh yeah, this is indicative of what you've seen. But we all saw the Raiders take Darius Hayward-Bay in the top 10 over Michael Crabtree back in the day, right? And how did that work out for them?
Right.
It didn't. And that's why it goes to your point, Sean, that really the stats and the combine results, it should be taken with a huge grain of salt.
Right. Yeah, and I'm right on bar with you guys. More tape, but I will say we all are guilty of every once in a while, not just us three. I'm talking about everybody.
Yeah.
Of getting sucked into the combine and seeing
yeah.
like numbers somebody put up and be like, oh, that guy's a first round. But a lot of it, like you shouldn't really put too much weight into it unless it's like these two guys are neck and neck. Like J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain, they're right there. They're right there. Who had a better combine? Okay, well maybe he gets a leg up. Maybe he's. But yeah, I mean, you see people all the time. I remember back Bruce Campbell, the offensive tackle from Maryland, when he was coming out, he put up an incredible combine. I was like, we need a left tackle. We need to draft him. Chris Samuels was getting old. We didn't. We passed him up. I was so pissed at first. He ended up going to the Raiders later on in the draft, and he was terrible. He was horrible. But it happens all the time. All the time.
He just went viral for getting knocked.
That wasn't him. That wasn't him. It looked like him. They thought it was.
Really?
Yeah.
I was gonna say that
I was so happy. That's what reminded me of him was that video, and I was like, yes.
I was like, yo, that is embarrassing, though. You got knocked out by an average Joe Schmo in Walmart.
Just nobody. Yeah.
All right, to finish up our fan questions, let's go with our favorite Orange Crush. He said, let's say you're drafting a linebacker, what is your go-to number one stat or attribute that you're looking for, Reed?
Oh, it depends. I mean, it really depends on what kind. If we're talking about Washington right now, they could use a few things. I think that they're comfortable with John Bostic at the mic.
He's just saying you. Let's say you are a GM and you're looking to add a linebacker. Linebackers. What is an attribute that you're looking for?
Versatility. I think just versatility. Like somebody like Micah Parsons, you could play all three positions. Same with Zaven Collins. He can play all three positions if you want him to. I think all three, Mike, Sam, and the Will. So really the versatility and just the ability. But what I really like is of course, everybody likes a hard-nosed middle linebacker, a throwback guy, but I really like these new age weak side linebackers, these Wills that are just flying all around all over the place and can just make plays. They can cover. So I think that's kind of the direction that the NFL is going, as we've seen.
Yeah. Now, for me personally, if I'm looking at linebacker, I'm looking at somebody that can fill that gap. That, they go into the hole. That's an open hole. It's between them and the running back, and they are putting the hat on the hat. They are bringing them down in the hole before they get any yardage. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the guy that has a nose for the football, that can read it, that can move across the line of scrimmage, be able to come off of blocks. Let's say they pull somebody. Here comes linebacker coming around and meet the pulling guard to stop that gap. That's what I love, and that's what I'm looking for at a linebacker. If you can do that, that's what I'm all about, baby.
Yeah, definitely the same way. A linebacker that has a nose for the ball, has great instincts, his great cerebral, pre-snap kind of attributes, kind of like a Luke Kuechly type. Obviously, there's only
smart
a couple of Luke Kuechlys, Brian Urlacher types in the NFL history, but those type of mold guys where very smart up top and it translates physically, can fill the gap, has a nose for the ball, can run sideline to sideline, can play coverage also. So those are what I'm looking for, kind of like a Lavonte David type.
Yeah. And we can all admit that we all want that Ray Lewis, that old school Dick Butkus, that hard ass middle linebacker, the London Fletcher type who just going to always be around the ball, going to get everybody in position, just going to lay some wood and just going to do his job and be consistent and not miss a game. Hear about the old school Steelers practicing on asphalt, or not asphalt, on gravel and stuff. Come on, those are men. Nobody does that these days.
Now, Orange Crush's second question. Let's do this one quickly. What is unique about the Sam, Mike, or Jack linebacker? As in, what's good about each of them? And I'll start with you, Reed, if you just want to use one.
I'll just go with the Will. Will's usually somebody who they use a lot in coverage and who they kind of roam a little bit. He's on the weak side, lined up away from the tight end usually. So it's a Will.
Yeah, and the Mike linebacker is usually the middle linebacker, the field general on defense, calling out the plays, calling out what the offense is doing, and also the QB spy and stops the seam route. That kind of I've talked about it with Zaven Collins being that Tampa 2 linebacker, deep field, kind of being between the safeties and being the guard there. That's what the middle linebacker is for, and especially.
Yeah, and the Jack, two different things. In the 3-4, he's kind of that undersized DN that can kind of translate the play linebacker or again put his hand down in the dirt and rush. In the 4-3, he's the
strong side.
Yeah, the strong side guy. Pretty much, he kind of the hide behind the lineman, and just scrapes to the ball. First one to the ball, nose for the ball. that type of guy. So
real fast. Perfect example of a will in this draft is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
Yep.
The dude just flies around.
Yep. Absolutely
sir.
perfect. That is the will. Now, everybody, we have arrived to our mock draft version 2.0 with fan submissions. So, with the first overall pick, let's go with Michael Reed. He's going to be making the pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Do we even need to say it at this
No.
point? No.
Not according to Chris
Sunshine.
Sims.
Oh, yeah, well, Chris Sims. Remember, you can't spell Christopher without CTE. We're going number 1 overall. Jacksonville Jaguars are taking Sunshine Trevor Lawrence. It's obvious. He's been the golden boy for years. That's it.
And just so anybody doesn't know, Chris Sims just came out today and said he was making a case for why Wilson should be drafted over Lawrence, number 1 overall.
Ask Thor about it.
So let's go to our number 2 overall pick, which will be from our fan and Scott Hartley. Let's see what Scott has to say.
Thanks for having me on a mock draft 2.0. Well, with the second pick in the draft, the New York Jets select Mac Jones, quarterback. No, I'm joking. They're going to select Zach Wilson, quarterback, BYU. We all know this is the pick. It's been the pick for a long, long time. The Jets get a deep threat quarterback who can play off play action, looks to be their future franchise, tons of upside, looks like he'll be a day 1 starter, obviously, in the NFL. And they get their guy for the future. Thanks for having me on, guys. Bye.
All right, we just heard from Scott Hartley. He took Zach Wilson, number 2 overall to the New York Jets. Fantastic selection by them. Now let's move on to San Francisco 49ers being selected by yours truly.
This is where the draft starts.
I've said it. I did a breakdown of Justin Fields about a month ago. I felt San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan was the perfect spot for him on number 12. They knew who they were getting when they traded up, and Justin Fields. Kyle Shanahan's offensive scheme will make it so much easier for Justin Fields. We saw with that RG3 style offense in 2012 where he was able to hit that play action and get it to the wide receivers in open lanes. That's what's going to happen for him in San Francisco. Plus, he's got Trent Williams blocking his blind side along with George Kittle at tight end. Absolute slam dunk for the San Francisco 49ers, getting their quarterback of the future. Now, moving on to number 4, the Atlanta Falcons are selecting by Michael Hall. What are we going with, brother?
In the mock draft, I'm going to have them taking Kyle Pitts at number 4. In the real life, I do think they're going to trade out the pick.
Yeah.
But for this, we didn't do any trade, so I have them taking Kyle Pitts. Obviously, Kyle Pitts, outside of Trevor Lawrence, might be the best prospect in this draft. He's versatile. You can line him up at tight end on the end of the line of scrimmage. You can split him out, kind of that Travis Kelce, like the Y position, like in the slot. You can play the outside as well. Dude who's a
quarterback if you wanted to.
Yeah, he could probably coach the team as well. Who knows? But yeah, the dude's a freak of nature and maybe even a surefire Hall of Famer at this one because the dude is just a baller.
Imagine an offense with Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Kyle Pitts.
It might take him back to the Julio Jones. Who's the second guy? Roddy White. And Tony Gonzalez days when they were like almost made to the Super Bowl.
Arthur Smith is set up for success, dude.
Yeah.
Now with the 5th overall
you could say
pick.
He knows how to build a team.
I don't get it.
Now with the 5th overall for Cincinnati, Reed is making the selection. Are they going left tackle? Reed, what is Cincinnati doing here?
Cincinnati should definitely go left tackle, in my opinion, but they're not going to here. They're going to end up listening to their franchise quarterback who has been campaigning for the Cincinnati Bengals to take his good friend, former college teammate Jamar Chase, and I don't blame him. Jamar Chase is fantastic. He would make a fantastic duo out there with T. Higgins. Jamar Chase, a freak of nature. We saw that from his pro day. We put on the film. The guy is just absolutely fantastic. Him sitting out a year doesn't worry me at all because he's just that good. Yeah. So I think Joe Burrow, he's going to have another year where he's running for his life, but it's a deep offensive tackle class. You can take an offensive tackle that you can get to start early on in round 2. They're going to go Jamar Chase and just get an absolute stud.
Yeah, that's a great selection. Now let's go to Tony Franchise for the fan submission for the 6th overall pick for the Miami Dolphins.
What's going on, fellas? And with the 6th pick in the Burgundy and Gold podcast mock draft 2.0, the Miami Dolphins select Penei Sewell, left tackle out of University of Oregon. You know, you have Tua Tagovailoa there. You picked up Will Fuller over the offseason, and you still have Devontae Parker. You know, let's protect the quarterback. Get somebody in there for that. So Penei Sewell, left tackle, is going to the Miami Dolphins.
All right, thank you so much, Tony. He select Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle, going to the Miami Dolphins, getting the blindside help. Not blindside, but getting the left tackle help for Tua Tagovailoa, their quarterback. Great selection. Now we're moving on to Detroit at number 7, selected by me. We heard from the Dan Campbell when he was hired. He wants guys that want to bite off kneecaps, right? Or just do anything, just warriors. Well, they're getting their selection 7th overall. Micah Parsons, going to them, establishing that culture, building that defense from the ground up. They get their middle linebacker of the future. Detroit, with all of that offense in that division, Minnesota and Green Bay, they need some great defensive help, and Micah Parsons will be the first foundation, that first brick being laid for a dominant defense in Detroit. Now moving on to Carolina, but who Hall has the pick. What is Carolina doing here?
Carolina just acquired Sam Darnold. They already have Robbie Anderson. They have DJ Moore. They have Christian McCaffrey coming back off the injury. So why not give Sam Darnold another weapon? I'm got them picking Devontae Smith, wide receiver from Alabama. This is a guy that is a burner. He can play on the outside. He would pair well going with Robbie Anderson as well, or DJ Moore. Mm-hmm. He can work out the slot, which will be a huge mismatch cover anybody covering him. They just lost Carter Samuel, who was like dominating the slot for them last year. So it would make perfect sense for them to draft Devontae Smith and to give Sam Darnold all the weapons he can have and desire.
Yeah, if he screws up, that's on him. Now moving on to Denver, who Michael Reed has. What are they doing here? Are they going tackle? Rashawn Slater, maybe?
No, the Denver Broncos are going to finally get some competition for Drew Lock. They're going to take Mac Jones, who apparently a lot of the NFL is higher on than a lot of the media. Mac Jones can come in there. He can compete. Will he be that good? I don't know. There's rumors of him going third. Is that a smokescreen? Nobody's really sure, but I do know that the Alabama wide receivers apparently liked him better than Tua Tagovailoa. So what does that tell you? Mac Jones was fantastic this past year. I think you put him out there, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, KJ Hamler. This offense has a potential to be explosive. There's rumors that Elway and them had a trade in place to get Matthew Stafford before they were outbid by the Rams. So he's obviously wants a quarterback, and here he goes ahead and he gets somebody else to possibly fail for him.
Now, speaking of fail, let's move on to the 10th overall pick in the Dallas Overrateds, who we have a fan selection from Rio. If you guys haven't already,
Rio Dallas's pick.
Go subscribe to his podcast, Rambling with Rio. It's a great one. He's off the cuff. Absolutely love it. Let's hear who he has Dallas taking.
What's going on, fellas? It's Rio, and I'll be picking for dumbass Dallas at selection 10. Easy pick. You bring in Dan Quinn, the defensive mastermind, to run your defense. You get a defensive player, best one on the board for me, Patrick Surtain II, Alabama. Nothing to say there. Long, rangy, baller. Hate to see him going to Dallas, but that's the pick. Y'all keep killing it.
All right, thank you so much, Rio. He selected Patrick Surtain going to Dallas, getting their much-needed defensive help, pairing up with Diggs from last year, their first-round selection. Now, moving on to the next pick, staying in the NFC East, the New York Giants are going to be selecting cornerbacks back-to-back. They're going to select J.C. Horn, who is most likely probably the best cornerback in this draft class. Just my personal opinion.
That was the Giants, right?
Obviously, they have a great defense already. They are going to get even better at this point, adding J.C. Horn, who can lock down one side of the field with all these wide receivers in this NFC East. You know, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Adam Humphries, then adding in Dallas with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. You're going to need some good guys to cover on the outside. Giants go out and get it.
Imagine him with James Bradbury, who had a fantastic season last year, and Adoree Jackson. They just eliminated Dallas's offense right there.
Yep. Now moving on to the next pick and staying in the NFC East again, Michael Hall. What is Philly doing here?
Well, they're going to give, again, same kind of concept as Carolina with Sam Darnold. They're going to give Jalen Hurts all the chances to succeed in Philly. The way you do that is put more weapons around them. They went wide receiver last year in the first round. They're going to repeat it again and get the guy that potentially could have won the Heisman from Devontae Smith if he now got injured, Jalen Waddle, Alabama wide receiver.
Yes, we did our mock draft 2 weeks ago, and that's what we had Jalen Waddle going. It just seems like a great
It's one of
fit.
those things that just makes sense.
Yes.
Yep.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
So,
Now,
Yeah,
speaking
it
of
does.
making sense, the next pick is the LA Chargers. Michael Reed, what are they doing?
I feel like so far I've gotten the two easiest picks in the draft. This one, if this falls this way, I think
Yeah.
that it's a no-brainer that the Chargers, they have good receivers. I think that they need to protect Justin Herbert. They have a need at offensive tackle. They're going to go Rashawn Slater, who some people say is the best offensive tackle in this draft.
Yeah.
He can play offensive tackle. If he doesn't pan out there, he can play guard. The guy looks like a nerd, just like Tevin Jenkins, but he can play. And boy, is that guy a man in the weight room, brother. I'm going Rashawn Slater.
Yeah, it's a great selection for
That
the
was a good
Chargers.
wrestling promo too, though.
That
It
was.
was. Now let's move on to the 14th pick, which is Minnesota, which is done by Mark Baxter. Let's see what Mark has Minnesota doing.
What's up, fellas? Pretty new listener here. Appreciate the opportunity. Love the podcast. Without further ado, with the 14th pick of the 2021 NFL Draft, Minnesota Vikings select Quiddy D-line, Michigan. Man has crazy bursts off the line and some quality interior pass rush moves. They get a good one with this.
All right, we just heard from Mark Baxter. Thank you, sir. He had picked Quiddy Pay, the pass rusher going to Minnesota.
Freak athlete.
Dude, they need to get their defense up and running. You know, they need to get back to normal because they've turned into offensive heavy. Mike Zimmer being a defensive-minded coach, that would make a lot of sense. Now, let's move on to the 15th pick, the New England Patriots. They're going to be selecting quarterback Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. They're able to pair him up with Cam Newton, who I have said his running style is very similar to Cam Newton, running through people, has a cannon of an arm. He can teach Cam, and Cam can groom him, maybe possibly starting this season, but most likely starting next year. I think that's a shoe-in, perfect fit for New England.
Great fucking pick. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Now let's move on to Hall, who has Arizona. What is Arizona going to do here, Hall?
Yeah, we had Austin Gayle on earlier in the episode, and I asked him about who might possibly slide down the draft board. A lot of people are high on Caleb Farley. Arizona just lost Patrick Peterson to Minnesota, funny enough. And why not replace him with a guy like Caleb Farley, who, again, like Reed said earlier, if his back injuries kind of subside and he can stay healthy, he can steal the draft right there at that position, which is, 16? Yeah.
Yep.
So – great value pick for Arizona. They get hopefully their guy going forward to replace Patrick Peterson, Caleb Farley, VTech, cornerback.
Now let's move on to the 17th overall pick, which is the Las Vegas Raiders. Every mock draft I do, I see Michael Parsons going right here to 17 and falling right before us. Reed, what is Las Vegas doing? How are they going to kill our hopes today?
The Raiders?
Yeah.
The Raiders are going to kill our hope. They are. Usually the Raiders will take somebody random, like they'll take like a Garyon Conley, a Damon Arnett, Darius Hayward Bay, what's his face from Clemson, the pass rusher that they took at number 4. Yeah. But this year they are going to crush our hopes and dreams. And then that'd be cool if they took Pharrell though.
It would.
That guy doesn't age.
He doesn't age at all. Google it. We are going to have the Las Vegas Raiders taking offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw. They just traded right tackle Trent Brown back to the New England Patriots. They need an offensive tackle. They need to protect Derek Carr if they want to win. If they even like Derek Carr, maybe they want him to get hurt. I don't know. They're taking Christian Darrisaw here.
I would absolutely hate that, but it would make a lot of sense for them. Now moving on to the 18th overall pick, the Miami Dolphins. We get to hear from BK. Let's hear what Burger King picks for Miami.
With the 18th overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select Najee Harris, running back, Alabama.
All right, thank you so much, BK. He select Najee Harris going to Miami, which is a great selection for them. They're just adding tools to their offense.
So many picks, they can take they can do that. They can afford to.
Absolutely. But here we go, baby. Number 19 overall. We all joined together for this one. We all put our minds together what we should do here in this position. We came up with the Washington football team taking number 19 overall, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. In the new age NFL, offenses want to spread you out. They want to get you thin and pass the ball on you. So having somebody like Jeremiah would absolutely be pivotal for defenses, especially Washington's, and being able to match up with those wide receivers in the slot or
And
tight ends.
Evan Ingram.
He can line up anywhere, and dude, I'm telling you, he stops those guys in their tracks. That doesn't even include what he can do inside the box with his big hitting mentality and being a sure tackler. Obviously, he's a little undersized, but look at Darius Leonard in Indianapolis. Perfect fit for Washington. They get their linebacker they can really hang their hat on.
He's my little Nubian prince. That's what I got some emails from him.
Let's move to 20th overall, which is Chicago being selected by Hall. What are they doing at number 20, Hall?
Oh, man. At number 20, the Chicago Bears. You're going to notice a theme in my mock draft here, guys. They need a guy to go opposite of Allen Robinson. A lot of talk about Anthony Miller being on the trade block. I project him to be possibly traded during the draft night, whether it's day 1, day 2, whatever it is. So why not give a guy to go pair up against Allen Robinson, also who's on the franchise tag. Might need a replacement long term. They go Rashad Bateman, Kyle's favorite player in the draft. Rashad Bateman, wide receiver from Minnesota.
Yeah, I would just be happy Washington doesn't select him at 19. I've been beating that drum forever. Great selection from Chicago. Now let's move on to Reed with the 21st overall, which is Indianapolis. Who is the Colts going to take, Reed?
Well, Indy has a pretty big problem right now, and that is that stalwart left tackle. Anthony Costanzo is done. He's retired. He called it quits. They need a left tackle. They need to bring somebody in here. This is going to be my third straight offensive tackle. Some people say that this guy has to play guard, but if you watch his tape from this past year, his left tackle tape is pretty darn good. I'm going to go with left tackle. He's not going to play guard for the Colts. He's going to play tackle. Elijah Vera Tucker from USC. The guy has phenomenal tape from this past year, and he's versatile. And I just think him and that big mover, that big Samoan dude right next to Quentin Nelson, that's a nasty side.
That's very nasty. Now moving to the 22nd overall, which is the Tennessee Titans, are selected by Todd from the Tay and Todd podcast. You can find them all over iTunes. They are fantastic. Follow them on Twitter and for the pod. All right, now let's go to the 22nd overall. Who does Todd have the Tennessee Titans taking?
With the 22nd pick, the Tennessee Titans select Jamin Davis, linebacker from Kentucky. You pair him up with Jayon Brown, their highest-rated linebacker, and now you've got two stout linebackers in the middle of that defense. Offensively, they were ranked 3rd. Defensively, 28th. So you build that defense and have two guys who can defend the tight ends and the running backs, can stop the run. Jamin Davis, and strengthen your defense.
Thank you so much to Todd from the Tay and Todd podcast. He had the Tennessee Titans taking Jamin Davis, the linebacker.
Good pick.
Fantastic pick for them from Kentucky. That is a great pick for them. Makes a lot of sense. Now moving on to the Jets. Who are the Jets going to do with their second pick in this draft in the first round? I have them selecting Tevin Jenkins.
Ooh, I love this
year,
pick.
they got Mekhi Becton as a left tackle. This year, they're going to get Tevin Jenkins at right tackle, making sure that Zach Wilson is standing in between those two towers and that he can't get blitzed and being able to run the ball effectively off of the right side, which is very necessary for a right tackle to be able to do in the modern NFL. Great fit for the New York Jets getting Tevin Jenkins. Now moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. What are they doing here, Hall? Are they going wide receiver? Are they going linebacker? What are they doing?
Well, as everyone knows, Pittsburgh is known for taking a linebacker or some type of defensive player in the first round, majority of the time. But again, you're going to notice a theme in my mock draft here. I'm going offensive heavy on every position pretty much. So for Pittsburgh, them losing James Conner to Arizona Cardinals, I actually just signed with them today. Mm-hmm. They've been last in rushing the ball over the past 2 years. They've been absolutely horrible.
Dreadful.
So I went back and forth with this one because I love Travis Etienne from Clemson. I have a huge man crush on Javonte Williams from North Carolina.
Me too.
So I went with my man crush, Javonte Williams. Sorry, Travis Etienne.
That would be
you
such a
didn't make the cut. And I think that Javonte Williams in that offense would be a ball. Wait for it. Blur.
It would be.
That really would be a perfect fit for them. Now moving on to Jacksonville with their second selection in this first round. Reed, what are they going to do?
Now, usually I would say early and often the Jaguars should go ahead and help their franchise quarterback, but they have so many picks in the top 100, and it's such a deep draft at some of those positions They can go offensive tackle a little bit later. They did a good job of addressing their secondary this offseason. You know, Shaq Griffin, Rayshawn Jenkins. Still have a need at free safety. They're going to get the best one in the draft. Trayvon Moehrig is going to be going out there to Jacksonville, and they still have some picks to mess around with in the next round.
Yeah, that's a great fit for them. It really is. Now, moving on to the 26th overall pick. This is going to be selected by one of our great fans in BR. Let's see who he has. Cleveland taking in the first round.
With the 26th pick in the draft, the Cleveland Browns select Azeez Ojulari, edge, out of University of Georgia. I wanted to go ahead with a corner in this pick. I wanted to give him something on defense. I wanted a corner to go opposite Denzel Ward. Next best guy was probably Greg Newsome out of Northwestern, but ultimately I thought Ojulari was probably the better prospect, number one edge guy, in my opinion, and thought he'd be a pretty good duo with Myles Garrett on that defense. He's a pretty twitch-up guy, not the biggest or most length, but has a nice arsenal, I think, in dropping coverage as well, and probably be moved around as a little bit of a hybrid player.
Thank you so much, BR, for your selection with Azeez Ojulari going to the Cleveland Browns. Another freak going and adding with Myles Garrett. Obviously, just signed Jadeveon Clowney, but you can never have too many pass rushers, especially the interior defensive line. They are going to need that help. That's a great pick for them. Now, staying inside that AFC North, let's go with the Baltimore Ravens. I have them selecting Kadarius Toney. Going to them is a perfect fit for them. Obviously, they've been out on all these wide receivers in free agency, but Kadarius Toney can line up anywhere on the field. And if you're telling me that he's going to be lining up behind Lamar Jackson in some option packages and being able to leak out of the backfield, that is going to help their offense immensely, especially given the fact that they have Mark Andrews. Trying to get eyes off of him, what's the better way to do that? Use Kadarius Toney all over the field motion, keeping his eyes off of Mark Andrews and the quarterback. Absolutely love that selection.
Yes.
Now, moving on next to Hall's selection with the New Orleans Saints. They going quarterback?
No, they have all the faith in Jameis. I wanted to draft him a wide receiver, but once again, Kadarius Toney was taken from me one pick too early. So with them losing, what's the dude? Janoris Jenkins from the Saints. They're losing him. They already have a stud cornerback in Marcus Lattimore. So why not go out and get another potential stud cornerback and Greg Newsome II from Northwestern? This is a guy that's been a high riser since 2019, got on people's radar and had a great year in 2020, and I think can be a great second corner opposite Lattimore.
Yeah, and I'll say this right now. That's a great selection, but this next pick I think is probably one of the better ones we've done yet on these mocks. Now let's go to Green Bay with their selection, Reed.
Well, Green Bay, as everybody knows, really disappointed their fans last year by taking a quarterback in round one and then not addressing wide receiver, which was kind of silly of them. They're going to get their guy. Aaron Rodgers is going to get another stud big boy out there. They need all the help they can right now to score more points because as good as their offense is, they just need to score more to beat a team like Tampa or somebody, in the playoffs. So they're going to go out there and get a big, fast wide receiver to pair with Devontae Adams, and that is Terrace Marshall Jr. from LSU. He would fit fantastic. Aaron Rodgers would love him. When Jordan Love eventually comes in 12 years down the road, he was going to love him. Everybody's going to love him. Green Bay is going to love him. I'm going to love him. You're going to love him. God's going to love him. My parents love him. I think that my dog likes him better than me. It's, perfect.
Just makes sense. And that's a great selection. Now, moving on to our next pick, which is the Buffalo Bills. With our last fan pick, let's go to George Carmi, who we just had on. Let's see who George has Buffalo taking.
What's up, guys? It's George Carmi from FBC Washington, and I'm here to represent the Buffalo Bills in the Burgundy Zone mock draft. And with the 30th overall selection, the Bills select Asante Samuel Jr., Florida State cornerback. With the loss of Josh Norman, the Bills are at a deficit at corner. They already have the number 2 overall offense in the league. They basically are in an arms race against the New England Patriots and the New York Jets, who just added Corey Davis, Kendrick Bourne, and Nelson Aguilar to the division. So with Asante Samuel sliding in, they have a nice tandem in Buffalo. They should be able to defend themselves and defend the East. Bills Mafia, baby. Let's go.
All right, thank you so much. George was selecting Asante Samuel Jr. going to the Buffalo Bills. Next to Tre'Davious White, that would be sick for the Buffalo Bills, just revamping that defense even more. Now, the next pick is for Kansas City, the 31st pick in the first round. They lost almost like the Raiders. They imploded their offensive line, just shipping everyone out. Mitchell Schwartz. They had, Eric Fisher leave as well. I have them picking with the 31st pick, Samuel Cosmi, the left tackle out of Texas. This gives Pat Mahomes a little bit extra help. It made sense why Kansas City was doing this because they were eyeing offensive line already, knowing how heavy of a draft this is with tackle. They go and get their tackle before they can lose out on one in the second round. Samuel Cosmi to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, moving on to the last pick in our mock draft 2.0. Mr. Hall's going to make the selection for Tampa Bay. What are they doing?
Well, as everyone knows, they literally brought back every single player from their Super Bowl team last year, minus Antonio Brown, who most likely might be back next year too. Who knows? But with a guy like Ndamukong Suh getting up there in age, they're going to need a lot of rotational players to kind of relieve him, make him kind of a not really situational guy because he can still do it at a pretty high level, but looking towards the future. This not being a really, really deep defensive tackle draft, they're going to get the best one and maybe the only good one out of this draft. That would be Christian Barrymore from Alabama. And I think that he can come in, be a day one contributor in a rotation, and possibly make a difference on that defensive line.
Yeah, and that's a great selection. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our mock draft version 2.0, gearing up for this fantastic draft that we all love. Thank you to George. Thank you to BR. Thank you to Tay from Tay and Todd's. Thank you to BK, especially with his fantastic pick. Rio, Mark Baxter, to Tony Franchise, Scott Hartley. Thank you guys so much for all your help and your support. We really appreciate it. We will be back on Thursday with you guys, featuring a very special guest. You're not going to want to miss it. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And follow me at Funny Reed.
All right, we'll catch you guys on Thursday. Ready? Washington football. Hey!
Little breadcrumb trail there.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.